Welcome back to another 1883 Club event. Hope you're all doing well. Hello to everybody joining us here in the AirMeet platform. To any of you joining us on Facebook, on YouTube as well. Hello to you all as well. Please feel free, any questions, any comments whilst this session is running, place them in the chat on any of those platforms and we will pick them up along the way. We are delighted this month to be joined by I think I can say one of our favourites, definitely can say that. The wonderful Lee Lamb, who has worked with us almost 2 years now as a mentor across actually all of our programs. She mentors on our Startup Sprint program. She's worked with our entrepreneurs on Forward as well. We've really enjoyed working with her, and I know that a lot of the entrepreneurs that we've worked with have got immense value out of Lee's support as well. Lee, thank you very much for joining us today. I guess a really great way to kick us off before I kind of let you have the stage and go over what you're going to go over today. Do you want to give us a bit of a background as to who you are?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me again. I'm a bit of a pest when it comes to BEC. I'm Lee. I run the UK Startup Partner. So we try to focus on operational and strategic type work, specifically for startups. So my background, I was a COO in a bank and chief of staff type roles. And I realised that for me, it was more exciting to deal with startups. But one of the things that was missing was just the practical help of how to do the running of the business. And I went to a lot of startup events where I'd be like pinged in a corner by several founders going, and how do you do this? And how do you do that? So I absolutely love working with founders because they're so keen and eager to learn. But obviously with my experience, I try to bring a little bit of realism to how difficult sometimes the workload can be and the common pitfalls. So when I do my mentoring with BEC, a lot of the focus that I have is on the practicalities of how many things you have to think of at any one point to be strategically in line with your aims and objectives.
Awesome. I think that's a great introduction. And certainly through like you said, through the mentoring sessions, the workshops, I think what we've really enjoyed is getting people prepared for growth, for scaling, for all those things by making sure that we're putting in those solid foundations early on. We're doing the things now that for some people seem like, okay, well, I don't have to worry about that now. You know, it's not going to be a problem till later. But as you know, as I know, and I'm sure the businesses have experienced, if you do that work now, it makes it easier later on, or somewhat easier anyway.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, as I said, guys, any questions along the way, please feel free to add them into the chat. Just to give you a rundown on how the format is going to work today, I'm going to give the stage to Lee. She's going to speak about what she's going to speak about today for a little bit. Then we're going to open up for some questions, and afterwards we will, on the AirMeet platform, be able to kind of get around a table, have a bit of a roundtable discussion, maybe dig deeper into some of those questions or things that you want to explore. So that is it from me for now. Lee, stage is yours.
Cool, thank you. So, as you can imagine, because I deal with operations, I could talk about all sorts of things, but I wanted to try to be more focused today and talk to you about one of the tools that I use, which doesn't, on the face of it, look like it should be a good tool for startups, but I use it with my clients and it works phenomenally well. It's a product called the Game Changer Index, the GC Index. Came out about 3 or 4 years ago. Typically, we think of it as a profiling tool, although you will notice that it is absolutely not. So I'm going to try and make the tech work and give you a visual to work with, because this is, there it is, that one. So the tool is used in a number of different ways to predominantly work as a profiling tool. So when we talk about the index, we're normally talking about it in relation to one person, a team of people, but I think it's also a really, really good way of thinking about your business as well. So I'm going to give a brief rundown on how you would use it as an individual, get you used to some of the terminology, but then we'll go straight into how would this be useful to you as a startup and how to think about growing your business. So the idea is that there are 5 areas here called proclivities that we all have about the contribution and the impact that we make on our work life, but also our life in general. So some people have strong game changer. This is the creative, innovative, nothing is off the table, very, very imaginative, almost obsessional. They come up with ideas because there is no box to stay in, there are no rules, they're highly disruptive. This is obviously quite uncontrollable sometimes, so we tend to have them coupled with maybe a strategist. So the strategist proclivity is somebody who can think big, think of these big ideas and follow big visions, but they're thinking of it more strategically. They're thinking of, what does the structure look like here? Is it commercially viable? Is it something that makes sense to me? So these two both talk very much about the ideas and making sense of them. Now, neither are very interested in getting their hands particularly dirty with the implementing. So we have what's called the implementer. Now, the implementers make up the majority of workers in businesses, or particularly the kind of roles that they go for, because these are the people who get stuff done. It's very tangible. They want to see results. So they're quite happy if at the end of the day they feel a little bit sore and a little bit jaded if they can see the results of their work. And they're very happy lifting very heavy loads in order to make progress. But think of them like a builder. They want to build the house. They want to make sure that the bricks stay up and the roof is on, not too worried about the details. And they tend to typically get a little bit bored at the point where it's finessing and refining. That's where our polishers come in. Polishers are people with great attention to detail. Again, we're overing very obsessional thinking. And that's what makes them so good, because they look at what's already there and say, hey, I know how to make this better. Right? So all 4 of these types of proclivities work really well together to create an idea and see it come round, not only to make it tangible, make it happen, but make it even better. Now, as you can imagine, these 4 don't really talk. Are you still there? Because I think my connection went there. Let me just make sure I can share the PDF again. I'm hoping it'll come back. See if I can keep it going this time. So they don't talk very well together. So we have proclivity, which is a playmaker. Now, this is a person, or this is a proclivity that tries to marry all of them together. So they're like the translator between the 4. They build extremely good connections, they use their network, and they are really good at explaining what needs to be done in each of the 4 other proclivities to make things happen. So these 5 proclivities, we're not really one and none of the others. We're all a bit of a mixture of them. But we have some natural tendencies, and the more that the work that we do matches our natural tendencies, the happier we are, the more engaged we are, and the more effective we are. As an example, if you put a game changer into a role that was all just data entry and very implementer type, they would appear disruptive. They would appear not very good and an underperformer. But it's nothing to do with their performance. It's to do with the fact that they're doing work that they physically can't connect with. It's not them adding value. So when we have somebody working towards their proclivities, towards their strengths, then we have a much more effective person. And as you can see, this would build out to the team. So you would try to have a team that has the right combination of these skills in order to keep it moving around and keep it working effectively. Now, that's how we typically talk about the GC index. And if I'm working with an individual or a team, that's the conversation. But it occurred to me that when I talk to startups about their business, and particularly how to think about how to keep the engine room of the business moving, then this framework actually works really well. Let's think about this. So you've got your game changer. Your game changer is the founder, the inventor, the person who noticed that something was missing from the world and is ready to plug that gap. Now, you may have co-founders. So you may have one who had the great idea and then another one who is maybe more strategic. But the company exists because somebody had an idea that wasn't there before. It had that spark of creativity. You then move around to the strategy. So, okay, I've come up with a great idea, but is it a business idea? Is it commercially viable? Is there a way to make the idea happen in such a way that I can build on it, grow on it, and make it successful? So you may have a fantastic idea, but when you take it to market, nobody wants it. So it doesn't make it any less of a great idea, but strategically, it's not going to go anywhere. So when you're in your product research phase, trying to work out, if I've got this idea, it's completely different than anything else on the market, but is that a good idea? We're very much in that game changer strategist piece. Once you've had the ideas, it's a good idea, and any founders on the call today will know this. You roll your sleeves up and you've got a hell of a lot of work that needs to get done. Now, implementers are good at building, but they are not necessarily good at immediately understanding vision or the purpose or the idea behind the company. That's because they're very focused on tasks. So when we're in the implementer phase of running our business, of setting everything up, they have to have some instructions. Now, what we tend to do with startups is we say, we'll figure it out as we go along. But everyone knows that's not as easy as it sounds. It's easier if while you're thinking of the vision, of the idea and the strategy, at that point to start saying, okay, so what's the instructions to making this actually happen? This can also help if you find that some of your ideas are going to need third-party support. You want to maybe outsource, you maybe want to bring in partnerships. In order to do that, you have to be able to explain what it is, what the work is that you need to get done. Once you've got it there and it's ready to go, then you're effectively running your business. You've launched, everything's going great. But now we need that polisher, because as a company, you have to not only launch, but you have to keep going. Now, the implementers will do the heavy lifting. They will do the majority of the work at the very, very beginning in order to keep you going and get some momentum up. But the market moves really, really quickly. So the idea of refining the idea, of making it as good as possible is critical. The polisher here also serves as your sales strategy, because remember, a polisher thinks, this is what I've got and I know how to make it better. Now, when you're trying to sell to your customer base, what is it you're doing? You're saying, I know what your problem is and I know how to make it better. So you know that you need some of that polisher energy in there to make sure that you can not only have the idea, but you're really clever and clear on how to explain to the customers and the target customers what it is you have and why they would be better with your product or service. All four of these, as a founder, if you're on your own right now, you're having to do all of these four, plus the playmaker role, the role that tries to coordinate everything. If you imagine all four of the game changer, the strategist, the implementer, and the polisher as plates that are spinning round, the playmaker is the one trying to keep them all going. Now, you can imagine that this is a wheel, an engine room, and this wheel has to constantly spin. If you start running into problems when you're trying to launch your product or when you're trying to run your business and grow it, the likelihood is that one of these cogs in the wheel is not working effectively. That might be because it's not your natural way of being. I've worked with some startups where they're a startup, they're an inventor of a product. They don't want to do the implementer. So they didn't hire any implementers. So they'd have these brilliant ideas, but there was nobody actually creating the marketing package for it. There was nobody creating the information that the salesman could then go and sell. So it caused a real problem. If I'd have tried to explain that in any other way, it would have just been blocked, because when you're founder and you're thinking of everything, it seems so obvious that the idea is everything. This person in particular was a very heavy game changer. The issue was that wasn't how the rest of the company felt. So they were waiting for direction from someone who didn't know that there was a direction needed. When I took them through this model, I was able to put them up, explain the engine room to them, and instantly we went through the questions. Okay, who's the game changer energy? Who comes up with your new ideas? And they put their hands up. I said, great, fabulous. You've got lots of people here ready to throw good ideas at you. Who are the strategists? Who's in the room making sure that you're investing in the ones that are going to be profitable, and maybe leaving some of the more extravagant ideas for another time maybe? And another couple of people put up their hands. Then we got to the implementer part. I say, okay, so who takes the good idea and makes the sales pack for that? Who writes the brochure? No hands. The only other hands that hadn't gone up was the sales team. And when we spoke to them, they were saying, well, I need to know what I'm selling. I need to know what the product is. And it turned out they were all polishers, which makes sense because they're absolutely phenomenal at going out and telling people how their product can make it better. But they still needed that tangible item. So it was really easy to find that block to why, when everything seemed to be set up correctly, it wasn't. What can you take from this? Well, you can look at this model just in terms of how you're fitting in your business model and your strategy. So where's your game changer energy? Who's coming up with the original ideas? Who is then, or how are you making that strategist consideration? How are you thinking, is this a good idea? Who's validating the idea from a commercial point of view for you? Who's doing the implementing? If it's you, how comfortable are you with doing that? It might be that you are doing it, but through really, really gritty teeth. And if so, it's feeling 10 times harder because you don't want to be doing it. Going back to my original point, if you're in one of these areas that you're not particularly strong in, you're more likely to be underperforming. And as a founder, that means realizing that what you're producing isn't the standard or the quality that you have in your head. You know what you want, but it's just you're struggling to get it down on paper. It could be because implementer isn't for you. If you are really passionate about not only the original idea, but the other ideas that you're inspired from, maybe you are ready to launch one product, but in your mind, there's 4 or 5 others that are just lining up ready to go. That's great. That's your polisher, but it needs to be controlled. You need to think of it as your pipeline. If you've got these ideas, these differences, these continuous improvement ideas, working out which ones you need to put in place so the original product is better, and which ones are just the next stage of your growth as a company is really, really important. And even though it feels like all of the effort, all of the energy goes into those 4 to keep that wheel turning, the one that's most critical from a founder's point of view is that playmaker, because they're the ones standing in the middle, making sure that nothing else falls over. Now, if you're running around that circle, doing all 4 of those other jobs, the likelihood is you're not able to objectively stand back from the work and see whether it is functioning the way that you want it to function. So you can see the GC index, even though it's designed to be working for individuals as a profiling tool to show what an impact they can have, from a startup's point of view, it's, I think, one of the simplest ways to not only think about the way a business works in general, but actually breaks it down into the different energies that we need to bring into our startups to make sure that we have everything going, so that your startup doesn't have an amazing launch and then taper out because there aren't any new ideas, there's no continuous improvement, or that you have so many ideas that you never get to launch because there's just another idea, there's not implementation, or that the game changer is the instigator of the work. But if you are that game changer, if what excites you is the new idea, then immediately you know that your startup needs to have an idea of exit. Because as soon as this wheel starts going around really well, the game changer will get bored. and that's when you need to have that strategy behind you to say, this is the time for me to move on as an individual, or even just start a new business and start this whole wheel effect again. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm very happy to take any questions. I think this is one of the easiest, not just because there's only 5 areas, but because there's only 5 descriptions that actually are very easy to remember. And hopefully you've been sitting there thinking about your own businesses, thinking, oh, where am I with these, and what am I feeling about each of them?
Awesome, Lee. Thank you very much for that. What I'm going to suggest, because we've got a couple of us on this call, a nice size. What we might do is do the questions over on the round table. Just jump straight across to that, because then it gives you guys an opportunity to ask questions a little bit easier, get a chance to kind of have a chat as well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to press a button here. It will then put you back into the social lounge, which was where we started off. If you click on table number 1, it says 1883 club members only, but I know there's a couple of you who aren't in 1883. Don't worry about that. You're on this call. We've invited you in, so please do come and join us, and we'll pick up the conversation there. Wonderful.
Cool. Thank
Awesome.
you.
I will see you over on the table, everybody.